What's going on, people? Myke C-Town here with another episode of The Catch-Up, where I'm covering albums that I should have covered when they came out, but for whatever reason, I didn't. I did one of these episodes a while ago, and yeah, I don't know, I just feel like it's time for another one. So I'm sure most of you did not expect this, and the thing is, I was going to review this album a while ago, but I just didn't get around to it. I'll explain why in a second. So because it took me so long, I just couldn't make myself sit down and do it. Then it just got further and further away from the release date, and the further it got, the more I felt like a review just didn't really make any sense. But then I started thinking about the fact that a lot of shit on my channel just doesn't make any sense, so fuck it. Plus, as recent as a few days ago, you guys were still messaging me about reviewing this album. And, there are no rules to reviewing albums. You don't have to review them right when they come out. And fuck, even if there are rules, man, fuck the rules. So I've been a huge fan of Busdriver since I first heard Fear of a Black Tangent back in '05. And it was a rap style that I hadn't heard anything like before, and to this day, I still haven't heard another rapper that raps like this. And over the years, he's put out a lot of music. Some I liked more than others, but nothing that I thought was actually bad. And with every record, I feel like he's stepped into new territories musically and creatively. But man, this record, I feel like this is probably his most ambitious release to date. So one of the reasons that it took me so long to review this. So I listen to a lot of different musical genres, as most of you guys know. I try to at least familiarize myself with as many genres as possible. But the one genre that, while I do like it, I'm not super familiar with it, that's jazz. I know I like certain types of jazz over other types of jazz, but I don't listen to enough jazz to really have anything close to an informed opinion on it. So the fact that this Busdriver album is really him rapping over a lot of chaotic jazz instrumentals, it was a little intimidating for me, to be honest. And when I say jazz instrumentals, I don't mean jazz influenced beats or beats with jazz samples. No, it sounds like he's simply rapping over jazz records or a live band in the back just playing some jazz shit. And it's either that or like these weird ambient soundscapes with no real tangible beat. Now the dope thing is, I've always considered Busdriver's voice to be more of an instrument to go along with the music. And it's not that his raps aren't important. They're very important. The dude is a wordsmith. But the way he treats his vocals is unlike other rappers. Look at the song Me Time from Jelly Bean. One of my favorite songs from that album. Is the prime example of what I'm talking about. And when I first heard that song, I always thought of what a whole album like this would sound like. And this is not quite that, but it's similar. The album starts off with the title track, Electricity Is On Our Side, a kind of free jazz song with some piano, some wild horns, and Busdriver kind of doing this weird singing thing that he does occasionally. But it's really cool that he patterns his voice to the pattern of the horn. And the song is actually really cool, but it almost sounds like a sort of intro. And I know when I first heard it, I was thinking, where the rap's at? I'm From a Different Time isn't super different from the opening track, but it's a little bit less jazzy. It's a really unstructured beat that sounds really odd with all kinds of sounds thrown into this gumbo, man. Sporadic drums, some sort of bell that sounds like it's pitch shifted or something. And it's a beat that most rappers would just walk away from like, nah man, I can't find a pocket in this. But it's not a problem for Busdriver, of course, and he rocks it effortlessly. The first song that really jumped out at me was the song The Year I Became a Motherfucking G. The beat is kind of subtle, ambient, and there's a lot of things going on with it, but they're inserted and kind of spread out within the song to the point where the beat comes across as understated, but it's really, really dope. And what Busdriver does over this beat is really dope, and I especially like the hook. Ooh wee, keep this between you and me, I done turned into a G. I don't know who Lord Fred 33 is, I've never heard of him, but I think he rode the beat quite nicely. Or maybe it's Lord Freddy, I don't know. Kiss Around the Notes is another one that jumps out. It's this more chaotic jazz kind of instrumental, but really twisted with this really tasteful kind of bass sound, and Busdriver's almost scatting over it. His flow is all over the place, but it still sounds perfectly placed. It's nuts how he crafts songs like this. The song right before The Miracle is a special track to me. Probably my favorite on the whole album. It's really tight drum work, some guitar licks, a horn player that's playing his ass off, and what Busdriver's doing with his voice is what amazed me so much with the song Me Time. Like, his voice is clearly going along with the instrumental as opposed to on top of it, until towards the end of the track where he just goes off the rails and spazzes out. But listening to the song, you immediately picture a smoky bar with a jazz band tearing it up in the background, and Busdriver just fits in so perfectly. You know, more than a vocalist with the band, he's more like a soloist with an instrument. It's such an interesting approach to a rap song, and I think it's just brilliant. Tiny Infidelities is another great one, a really cool beat with this chopped up organ or something. And again, these weird bell sounds, these choppy drums, and it features Hemlock Ernst, who rides the beat nicely, and I really love this line. Past age 6, I was already an old man with a death wish, now a middle-aged escapist with no room to grow. And I also like this line from Busdriver. Man, I'm so raw I can't get a show in my own city, blow fitty, so witty, Control-Alt-Delete your whole city. That's some cocky shit. I think the album ends really well with Pull the Sky Closer. I think it's a beautiful song. The beat is so fucking weird with all these sounds it uses, and it seems to change so many times while the song moves, and Driver is just spazzing all over it. And I really like what he does with the hook. It's almost got this pop sensibility that works really well. Now, the issues with this album. My main issue is it's very long. 23 songs, it's about an hour and 20 minutes long, and I feel like it starts to be a bit much after about 40 minutes. It's almost overload, and I can't say that it loses its steam because it doesn't. It keeps the same energy throughout the album. I just feel like, personally, I start to stop caring and wanting to listen to something else after probably about 15 songs. The other issue is probably more of an issue with me than it is with the album, and that's the issue of me not really knowing what's going on here. So Busdriver's lyrics are always very complex, quite coded, and I'll catch meanings and references here and there, but a lot of it definitely goes over my head. And this album, a lot of it missed me, probably most of it missed me. I understand the references to social issues. I understand the references to being black in America. But if there's an overarching meaning to this album, I just don't know what it is. And that's another thing that kept me from reviewing it. You know, you guys know when I review albums, I like to discuss the music, but also the meaning. I like to deep dive into the lyrics. You know, that's my thing. But with this one, I'm just not smart enough for this shit, bro. I went to art school, you know what I'm saying? I loved philosophy class. I used to write hella poetry, but my ass didn't even come close to understanding this album content-wise. But I think that that's why it's kind of great that the album sounds the way it does, because for me, it just meant that I didn't really have to focus too hard on figuring it out. It just sounds so cool aesthetically and sonically that I'm actually okay with not getting it. The interesting thing though is I actually liked the album quite a bit more when I first heard it, and I think that's because I was actually being introduced to a brand new sound that I really wasn't familiar with. But once the dust settled, I now think it's a good listen, but probably not something that I'd recommend to any old hip-hop fan that I encounter, and maybe not something that I'm going to return to over and over and over again. I definitely feel like I'd have to be in the mood for this type of album. At the end of the day, this is another album from an artist who has always released music that pushes the genre forward, lyrically and production-wise, and it's very important to notice that Busdriver produced, I believe, this whole album. So for him to be able to compose the type of music that he's composing here, as well as rap in the way that he's rapping, it's simply astonishing. He's always been one to stretch the limits of what a lot of people think that the genre has to offer, and that's what I've always respected and enjoyed about Busdriver. But this album is simply on another level. He's taking old sounds with the jazz, and he's mixing them with elements of these ambient sounds that we haven't even heard before to create something that really can't be easily classified. And I think albums like this is what makes me love hip-hop so much, But it's also albums like this that I feel are needed within the hip-hop bubble to make things keep moving forward and to keep things from becoming stagnant. So Busdriver, amazing job, man. Maybe at some point this will make sense to me, but for right now, my ears are fucking digging it, man. So if you guys haven't listened to this album, I'll make sure I put the Bandcamp link down there, and make sure you go pick up one of them limited edition vinyls that he's selling. And yeah, leave some comments down there and let me know what you guys thought of it. And we're going to keep this going, man. Don't bother dropping comments about reviewing certain other albums. Don't worry, they are coming. And as usual, thank you for living, thank you for loving, thank you for being you, and I'll see you guys next time. All right? Peace out, boy.